Hey there, YouTube. Today I'm going to be talking about shields again. Oddly enough, my first video on shields, which was about 3 or 4 years ago, is actually one of my more popular videos. I've made more shields since then and done more research on the subject, so I thought I would put out kind of a follow-up to show you where I'm at and also kind of expand on the topic. If you haven't seen the other video, you should probably watch it because it's more in-depth with how I build a particular style of shield, and that one for that video was this one here. It's actually held up pretty well. However, I've used it. It doesn't look like it shows up, but there's some decent scratches and scrapes on the front of it. I've mostly used it for practice as of now with wood or foam weapons, which of course don't do anything to the shield, but it'll still give you the weight of a period shield, and for any, I guess, HEMA sort of European martial arts sort of practice, you're really more going for its functional aspects than specific authenticity, so it might help you, although most of HEMA, I think, deals with a buckler, which I have one of those right here. And this one is fairly big. I want to say it's about 13 inches or so, but still small enough to be considered a buckler. This one is not metal. This one is wood. It's actually quite thick wood. I want to say it's probably 3/4 of an inch thick. I had bought the boss off of Cult of Athena, nailed it in place, and then used the same rawhide technique to give it the rim. And then as far as the handle goes, I cheated. Might be able to see that. Yeah, there we go. I used modern screws. I've actually had a hard time finding nails that look period that will stay put and won't wiggle out, or they're strong enough that I can't peen them over, I can't bend them over to keep them from sliding out. So for some projects I've used screws, and as you'll see, I actually use machine screws for a lot of my shields, but basic concept of how I put my shields together, just a quick review, is I cut out the blanks. I cut out the blanks from plywood. This is one I'm already in the process of. I cut out the blank, and then usually I take canvas. In this instance, I had some lighter fabric that I used. I still haven't even cut it to shape, but I primed it. I put my main color on there, and then I'll do the detail work after I've rimmed it and everything and put the handles on, so that way I don't destroy what I painted. But I'll paint that primary coat on. But to get this fabric to attach, I watered down wood glue and painted on with a sponge brush, and then I set the material over it. I found canvas actually works best. I've used fairly stout cotton cloths, and I think this one might have actually been almost like a light bed sheet or something like that, just because I had the material, and I had several shields, which you see the row of matching shields down there. Those are all made with the same material and plywood. But use your watered down wood glue mixture, and that's going to get really soaked into your material. Canvas, not so much, but if you put weights on it, it will hold tight. And then to make sure you have a nice smooth surface, make sure you've brushed it off clean before you start gluing it. And then once you've got it glued down and you're putting your fabric over it, you want to stretch it. You want to pull it at opposite directions to get it nice and taut on there, and that'll keep any bubbles or folds or pockets out of there. This one came out pretty well, although in a few of them I have made a few mistakes. I can see on this shield, I can see a wrinkle there and a wrinkle there and some here and then down there, but I'm sure you can't see that on the video, but as a craftsman, I like to make sure my work is always better the next time I do it. But once you've gotten to this point, you're going to take rawhide, and what I do is I use dog bones, and I've found that these kind of tubular ones, you can get them in, I'll say they're like 10 or 12 packs, but I think it's actually based on weight. And this one is actually still pliable. It had been drying out for a couple days. I'm filming this video in the barn, so it, but yeah, you can see it still kind of got some of its tautness back, but you soak it in water for a day or 2 or 3 depending on ambient humidity and thickness of the rawhide. These rolled up ones, I found it's easier to kind of pull them apart after they've soaked a little bit and become malleable, and then on the second day that you can work with them. But you get a nice good sized square, and then you can cut it into strips using an X-Acto knife. And where's one that I used there? Some of these I used a different style of bone, but once I found these, I really settled on it. And you can see from here to here, from here to here, from here to here, they're all perfect segments. So you get nice good sized cuts of it, and then you cut it into a strip depending on the thickness of the shield. That's something you're going to have to work with. How wide do you want that rim? That's up to you. But as you're stretching it, I find it's best to nail it down, or in fact tack it down with these. They're sometimes listed as carpet tacks, sometimes even upholstery tacks. But they're just these tiny little square chisel point nails. I mean, look at these things, they're tiny. And the size I've been using, this is number 6. I don't know even what that means. I'm not a nail expert, but the size was right. And depending on the thickness of wood, you might want to go up or down a size. Because if they're just enough that they kind of peek out the back, then you can't always peen them over without pushing them in. But if they kind of push through, but they don't come through the other side of the rawhide, and they get kind of stuck in there, it kind of acts as a second catch to keep the rawhide from slipping off. But what you do is you stretch those rawhide strips out of that material. I'll cut that into strips, and I'll tack it, and then I'll pull it about 2-3 inches, depending on if I'm doing like a corner, or if it's a rounded shield, I might actually, because you need that curve, I might actually tack them a little bit closer. But like on these edges, I think I went, well, here you can see them better. That's probably 2.5 inches there. That might be 3 inches. And then up top there, that one's maybe 1.5 inches. Most of these are 1.5 inches to 2 inches. But you want to pull it taut, tack it in, stretch it to the next one, and that way you've got the whole thing taut. And then you'll do the reverse side. And I find that doing it in an opposite fashion, like you have 2 here, here's your third 1, 2, 3, and in between I have 1, 2 right there. So it's getting stretched kind of both ways in opposite directions, and it keeps it very taut, which means when it dries, it's going to form a very hard shell around the edge of your shield, and it's worked fabulous as a rim. But that's the quick and dirty of how I construct it. And then the straps. I'll just grab one of them here. The straps are pieces of belt, and I just cut them to shape. Like this one already had perforated holes, but this one here I put in multiple holes. I have a leather punching tool. I put in multiple holes so that way you can make it adjustable. This one I actually happened to make for a little kid, and I wanted to make sure that he could continue to use it as he got bigger. And no, it is not period correct to use machine screws. Hopefully I didn't have to tell you that. Hopefully you already knew that. But just a couple of washers, one on each side. It keeps the canvas on the outside from getting dug in too much, and it dissipates the pull as you tighten it, and also it helps keep the leather strap from getting ripped out. And then just a nut on the end, because I do like my shields to have adjustable straps, and I also like to do something that's not historically correct. When you look at period pictures, you can see on the surface of the shield two spots above and two spots below where that strap is coming through. Sometimes they will be in a square shape with the earlier Norman style, which I built this one, and this is all conjecture. There's not a whole lot of evidence that supports it directly. We don't have archaeological evidence that says they use the Viking center grip as this. It's almost always thought that this boss was either decorative or part of some older fighting technique. It's expensive and difficult to put them on, at least from a perspective of a 10th, 11th, or 12th, even 13th century warrior. So why would you spend the extra money on an expensive decorative boss when you don't actually need it? But now I'm going off on a tangent, but the Norman style you usually see has this boss. It almost looks like it's padded on the inside. Imagine that this shit is not there, that you'd see in a square straps going to the sides and straps going below, and I think that's so that way you can grip it in both directions. But again, that's conjecture on my part. There's also a good article I read describing, this is more a carry strap, but it could be looped around the neck, and there is a style that you actually uses a handle up here, so you're supporting that shield, the weight of the shield on your neck, and you have it up here, so all you have to do is kind of tip it back, and you're using a different part of your arm, which is true with, I found this versus this one. With this style, I feel you use more of your forearm, and this one you use more of your shoulder. But, as far as which is easier to fight with, I think it might just be personal preference. I haven't used that one enough with anything other than foam sword sparring, just to kind of get a feel for it. But anyhow, if you're looking to make a shield, most of your basics are going to be the same. You're going to have the wood body, you're going to have the rim. There is evidence that some shields didn't have a rim. There is evidence that some shields didn't have, at least Viking shields, did not have a canvas or a linen facing or cover. So you could paint the wood directly. There's nothing wrong with that. I like it because I feel that it keeps the design a little better, whereas wood will chip. It also has a tendency to hold its structure better along with the rim. It binds itself together, so the whole shield is connected by the facing over top, and then held in place by that rawhide that's really running around the lip, because you want to make sure at each end it goes under, and then you tack on a new one. So this one nail here is actually holding the end of this piece and the beginning of that piece, so you have a continuous rim around. Some of my shields I think running out of leather and ended up being kind of sloppy, but this one is like that. So is this. The buckler's like that as well. So is my main heater shield there. But I've all used the same techniques for all of them. As far as when is appropriate to use them, depends on what you mean by the question. When being what century is it appropriate is one way to ask, and when, what is your purpose to use that shield? Are you doing HEMA stuff? Are you doing SCA stuff? Are you doing reenactment stuff? Are you just fucking around with your friends, which is cool? That's kind of where I'm at this point. I live in a very rural area, so I don't have the opportunity to engage in SCA without a lot of traveling, engage in HEMA without a lot of traveling. So I study manuals, I connect with people that are interested in these things, and I do experiments with what I build. But basically, when it comes down to it, all your shields are going to be built essentially the same. If you want to do a Roman shield, like somebody contacted me and wanted me to build, the payment has to come through, and they've got to tell me if they want 2 or 4, but they want Roman auxilia shields, and I'll use probably not the same round boss. I found some that have a square section, but it's up to them if they want to use that style. But I would just use the same plank construction. I would cut it into an oval. It would be flat, and I would have the boss in the center. I'd rim it. I'd have that center grip, and on a Roman shield you want that going parallel. That's why I chose to do it with the kite shield, because it really helps you hold that weight when you're fighting in formation. Also, when you're on a horseback, you're gonna hold your arm out if you want to hold your shield to the side. So you're gonna rest that weight. You're gonna rest that weight on the side. I could put it down and show you what I need here. You're gonna hold it out like this, and I actually believe that this style of shield, even though it came later, oval shields and round shields, similar construction, flat. There was some evidence for a lenticular shield, which is a lens-shaped shield was used. I think you've listened to me babble enough. If you have questions or comments, leave them.